All right, guys, welcome to Chief Chats. I am Ambrose. What's your name?
My name is Joseph.
I'm Quinn.
I'm Marley.
All right, so today's topic at hand is what is the hardest sport? So start us off.
I think personally the hardest sport is boxing, just because the physical shape you need to be in, the skill you need to have, and the risk it takes.
In my opinion, I may be biased. I think it's baseball because of the multiple different difficult aspects of the sport that intertwine.
I said figure skating just because it's like a lot different than traditional sports, but I think the artistry and like the athleticism combined is what makes it really challenging.
Those are all good points, but me personally, I'm gonna say basketball is the hardest sport, just because like you need skill, you need athleticism, you need IQ, and you need height. Like most people don't have that, so yeah. So that's kind of like opinion based, but now let's get into the facts. What's the hardest sport based on like the technicality or like the athleticism, and like give us some evidence too. Why not?
So I liked how this one site, Sports Display, ranked the hardest sport. They did it off of a scoring system, which was off of a couple categories like physical demand, mental toughness, skill complexity, injury risk, and training intensity. And all of the sites I've seen, like Sports Display, ESPN, they've all ranked boxing as the hardest sport that you can do. Like Sports Display gave it a 49 out of 50, which is higher than any other ones, giving it a 10 out of 10 in everything but skill complexity, which was still a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, in baseball, hitting a baseball is known to be the hardest thing to do in sports. And studies show that like a major league fastball, trying to hit it, is you have less than half a second to decide if you want to hit the pitch, if it's in the strike zone, and if you're gonna hit it. You just have so little amount of time, and the ball's moving so fast with such a small bat that I just think it's the hardest thing to do.
I think definitely compared to like traditional sports like basketball, baseball, all the sports, figure skaters are judged on like very different things. Rather than being like a traditional score, like you score, I score, you're the only one like out on the ice. You're based on jumps and spins, but also like performance. I think a lot of other sports, you don't have to think about like how you're carrying yourself as much as you do in like artistic sports like figure skating. Like according to U.S. figure skating, the way they judge Olympic figure skating is their performance, transitions, interpretation of the music, and compositions are weighted twice as hard as any like jump, spins, or cool technical skills they put in their routine. And I think that just like makes it so much more challenging because you can't just like rely on your skill to carry you. You have to perform.
Mm-hmm. So, I feel like it's obviously basketball, right? Because the game ranges from 32 to 48 minutes, depending on what level you're at, like high school 32, NBA 48, which means that, and you're also playing in an anaerobic zone, which is typically fast-paced and, very challenging on the body. And then also the skill it takes to make a three-pointer, the average person is not going to make 36% from three in a game. They're going to make maybe 10% to 30%, maybe, if they're good. The toll it takes on the body, basketball is one of the leaders in injuries, unfortunately, due to how rough it is on the body. And then IQ, if you don't have an IQ for the sport, you're not going to go far because you need it, I feel like some sports you can just hit hard or, hit the ball hard and then you'll be good. But basketball, you got to have that IQ,
I mean.
Okay, let me ask this. Have you ever played this sport?
I have boxed before. I boxed for about a year. I don't think it was the craziest, hardest place that there is, and like the most pinnacle of boxing. But I believe that like it was very challenging, and it still had a lot of risks to it. And there's way more skill involved in boxing than many people think. It's not just hitting hard. You have to have a split second to dodge, to figure out where they're gonna hit you, how they're gonna hit you, it's just everything you have to calculate. And it's not just you mess up and you strike out or you miss a shot. Like when you mess up, you get hit every single time, and it has a real toll.
Yeah, I have played the sport since I was about 5 years old, and at our high school we played a really competitive level against a lot of very good different teams around this area, and I just think overall in this area, it's one of the most competitive sports, and it's just it's not easy to be good at.
I've never skated. I dance, which is also an artistic-based sport, but I've never skated.
Personally, I have played basketball. I also have played 3 other sports in high school, and this one is by far the most challenging and physically demanding too, because it's like pretty mentally challenging. Speaking of mentally challenging, do you believe boxing is the hardest mentally?
I do believe boxing is the hardest mentally. For the reasons I said before, like you're risking your body on the line, you're risking your brain and your head, and even some organs get hurt from like liver shots and stuff like that. So you're risking a lot more than anything in any other sport, I believe, because it's not just you lose. You don't like when you lose in boxing, you lose like to injury, you lose to all these other factors. You don't just lose a game.
Yeah, I switched mine for the hardest mentally sport, like boxing or MMA. Like I agree with him.
Yeah.
Like mentally, like boxing or MMA is just so difficult. Like it's not only like you can get injured and you're getting hit every time, but you have to like fight another person for however long, even if you want to stop. You know.
Yeah, I definitely don't think figure skating is like the hardest mentally sport. I think it's definitely hard to like put yourself out there like you have to, but I think I would rather do that than go in a ring and get punched a bunch. So.
All right. Like I said earlier, basketball. I mean, it's just like it's really tough on the body, and then coaches are usually like tough on you, so that could make or break a player. Lastly, what do you guys think the hardest sport to go pro is?
I think there's many sports that's like really hard to go pro, but like I said, I still think boxing is one of the hardest to go pro in, because you not only have to be great skillfully, great like physically, but you have to completely outclass your opponent to be an entertaining fighter. Because at the end of the day, when you're a boxer, your job is to put on a show for people. Your job is to entertain. You can't be a great boxer, a pro boxer, and fight boring. So you have to completely outclass and outskill your opponents to be able to like put on an entertaining fight.
I'd say the hardest to go pro would be the NBA or the MLB, because the NBA, the roster sizes are so small, and it's such a competitive market to be able to be on one of those teams with the roster sizes. And the MLB, there's so many baseball players like all around the country and world that want to get a chance to be in the MLB, and there's such a like difficult level or way to get in MLB with the minor leagues and all these different like leagues to get into the MLB. I just think it's one of the hardest sports to go pro.
I think figure skating would definitely be difficult just because there's such a limited amount. Like, it's not as mainstream as many other sports, so there's very limited routes to go pro in it, and that's how a lot of sports are: cheer, dance, anything like that. You're gonna have a really hard time if you want to go pro, if you can at all. But also, I think we're gonna have to go with Ambrose on this one and say basketball, just because I feel like it's so like looked at nationally that like you have to be good. You can't just like run hard.
Yeah, kind of disagreeing with what you said, Jonathan. I feel like anybody can be a boxer. Like you look at Jake Paul, you know, Paul brothers, they kind of just box for fun, you know. They make millions of dollars doing that, beating up old dudes. Basketball, definitely the hardest, because out of the only 3.6% of high school athletes go to the college, and then only 1% of those play in the NBA. So it's like by far the hardest, and you have to have, you know, height, athleticism, and skill. Like it just doesn't compare.
I don't know. I still think, like you mentioned with the Paul brothers and all of them, people don't realize how much time they put into the sport of boxing, how much time they train, what they do for the sport. And also, they never fight real boxers. They fight YouTubers who aren't also pro boxers.
Still, I don't know. We'll just have to pick this up another day. Thank you guys for joining me.